Hey guys, so I know I said that I was going to be doing the what is it? The that I wasn't going to be oh my goodness, this is hard for me to talk about. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Um but I just wanted to talk about something that has hurt me in my past, which means I now have to speak on the fact that of a location near me, right? So, exposing where I live, right? But, I'm gonna talk about the high school I went to because there's been a situation that's come up with my sister's high school, which is a completely different high school than where I went, but it's around the same area. And I'm going to speak on how they dealt with two similar situations, completely different. The high school I went to, William J. Dean Tech High School. They dealt with the situation terribly, horribly. I felt like everything was my fault. Some people, like, they were saying there was one person who wasn't even a part of the school that did say that it was not my fault, that shouldn't be happening. But I personally feel like it wasn't dealt correctly. It wasn't dealt with correctly. I do forgive everyone in the situation. It just is upsetting, and I want to put this out there so that people know that it's not just you. It's not just you. It's not your fault if something happens to that person. They made you uncomfortable, and that needs to be told. That needs to be shared. That needs to be, someone needs to be informed of that. And if people are just pushing it off, tell everyone. Make it known so that not a single person doesn't know about it. Because that's what I tried doing. And I was pushed to the side by everyone I told. And I just thought it was normal. I thought, okay, I guess I don't matter. Right? Because that's how they make you feel. So, I will talk very lightly on the situation my sister is dealing with because that is her stuff. But it is similar to the situation that I dealt with. So, pretty much what is happening is a teacher is making my sister uncomfortable in her school. And she went to the counselor and she talked about it. And the counselor listened to her and is acknowledging every single word she is saying and is saying, I am thankful that you came to me with what you said, and we will make sure something happens due to what you have said. But sadly enough, with my situation at William J. Dean Tech High School, it was not the same. They didn't care about my situation. They didn't care about what I dealt with. For the most part, they literally blamed me for what I dealt with. They blamed me for what happened. Or at least that's what it felt like. I'm not trying to put, oh, I'm a victim act, whatever, like that, right? I'm not. I am being so serious when I say what they said was blaming me for it. Even though one of them said it's not my fault, their response was genuinely blaming me for the actions of the teacher. So, also, let me inform you on what happened earlier, just a year before, right? So just the year before, sorry, I need to plug in my phone real quick. But just the year before, I had spoken up about this teacher that had bothered me, had made me uncomfortable the first year of high school. A teacher was arrested for texting, having conversations with a student. And I didn't want to speak up about what I was going through because I thought that teacher's old. Maybe they're just like that. Maybe that's just how they are because they're old, and old people don't know personal space, right? But the fact that it is being dealt with so differently at my sister's high school from where I went to, it really, it hurts. It hurts. It does hurt. Like, yes, I forgive everyone in the situation, but it hurts so much that her situation is being dealt with differently than what mine was. But we went to different high schools, so it would make sense. And this is part of my testimony, so let's get into it. Ninth grade, back in 2019, right? I started ninth grade, fall or end of summer 2019. So not many of my friends were in that school. I probably knew like 5-7 people, right? And one day, first thing that happened was with a student. So one day I was just sitting in a hallway because they had like these bench type of things in the hallways. And I was sitting there. And this random kid came up to me and asked me if I knew the game called Fire Truck or Police Car. And I was like, no. And I didn't know who the kid was. I did not know at all. Not at all. I don't know who they are. I still don't know who they are, and I would not want to get to know them. I forgive them for their actions, but I don't want to know them. Unless they've changed. Unless they changed, they are not going to be given another chance. But they asked me if I knew the game. And I was like, no. And then I ignored them and went back to talking to my friend. And then out of nowhere, they placed their hand at my ankle, on my inner ankle, inner leg part. And they started moving their hand up my leg. I was frozen with fear. That's never happened to me before. No one has ever touched me at all in that school before. So it was out of nowhere, super random, and I have a very slow reaction time due to stuff that had happened to me years prior. Because I had already had things happen to me in life that weren't involved with school. So that happening in school, I didn't know what to do. So he was putting his hand up my leg, and then he said for me to say stop. I said stop, and he said fire trucks or police cars don't stop at stop signs or red lights or whatever like that. And he continued to put his hand up past my knee, and the only reason why he stopped was because I moved his hand. He wasn't going to stop. He wasn't going to. He was going to keep going. He had no intention to stop, and I know that. And the next thing that happened was with the teacher that got fired and was arrested. He didn't do anything personally to me. It was just He was really kind with the students. Everyone loved him. He was the young gamer nerd teacher, right? Everyone loved him. No one thought wrong about him. But every time I would go to school with a certain shirt on, that literally the shirt was a plain t-shirt with some like cartoons on it of Baby Yoda, which I don't know his name. I just say Baby Yoda. But it was a shirt like that, and I always, like, I really liked the shirt. I don't like Star Wars that much, but I really liked the shirt, right? So I would wear the shirt every now and then, and every time I would wear the shirt, he'd say how much he loved my shirt, which, okay, fine, that's just a compliment about my shirt. But the thing was, the shirt was very tight on me, and it like had 6 Baby Yodas on it, right? It was like, oh, me every day of the week or whatever, like oh, tired me, hungry me, stuff like that, right? So he would specifically say that the Baby Yodas down near like a certain area was his favorite, which would make me uncomfortable because it was every single time I wore that shirt. It's not like he said that once and then okay, fine, but I wore that shirt like 5 other times. The 3rd time I was like, okay, this is kind of getting weird. The 4th time is when he said the compliment, and then the 5th time I wore the shirt, I had forgotten he said the compliment, and then he said the compliment again, where it was like, oh, I specifically like this one as well. So it was just really strange to me, to the point where I threw out that shirt, and he never complimented me again, or complimented the shirt or anything like that again. But it just made me very uncomfortable, and when I spoke up about it, when I told my friends that, like, oh, this teacher is making me uncomfortable with what he's saying, they were like, don't say that, don't do that, don't ruin the person he is, don't say that, because they loved that teacher. But he already ended up in jail because he ended up texting a student, so turns out I was right. But he didn't do anything to me, so I have no hatred towards him. I have no issues with him. I forgive him for his compliments that might have been harmful or might not have been. He was a great person. It's just, I really do not believe that a 23-year-old should be a teacher for high schoolers, because that's what messed it up. Because they're 23. It's not wrong for a 23-year-old to be with an 18-year-old if the 18-year-old agrees. So why would he, like that's just, like, he signed himself up for failure by trying to be a teacher for high schoolers of all things. But I guess it's better that way, because then the little kids wouldn't have to deal with him possibly being like that. But so that wasn't really effective towards me, but he got what he got, jail time. He isn't a teacher anymore, so that was dealt with. But in 9th grade again, my gym teacher, he would make me uncomfortable. Like, it all started when he walked into the girls' locker room, because there are no female gym teachers. There were no female gym teachers when I went there. There were no female gym teachers now that I know of. And he was like in his late 60s or 70s, and he like the girls, most of the girls didn't like gym, right? So they'd go into the locker room and just be there, or some of them had to use bathrooms, so they'd go into the locker room. Or some of them genuinely changed for gym, so they went into the locker room. And he didn't like that they were staying in the locker room for almost all of gym. There were a few girls he allowed to stay in the locker room all of gym, but then when they're loud and making videos and laughing and all that, and he realized, he was like, he'd go in there and be like, you guys have to come out. And that just ultimately made us all uncomfortable, or at least me. And like, one of my friends agreed, like, yeah, it's weird, but he has to get them out of the locker room somehow. But like, me personally, my thought process was, he could have just called one of the counselors, because all of the counselors are female. He genuinely could have just called one of the counselors and been like, hey, we got these girls who won't come out of the locker room, can one of you come down here and like tell them they need to get out? Or they could have called like the vice principal or someone else who was a female to get the students out of the restroom. Or he could have sent another girl in there that was trustworthy to go in there and tell them that he wanted them to come out. He didn't have to step foot in the girls' locker room. And but that was like the first thing that he ever did that made me uncomfortable. And I didn't necessarily like gym. Like, I love gym. I absolutely love gym, but he made it weird. Like, just him in general, I didn't want to do gym and have him watching me, because I constantly felt like he was watching me. And then there was this one time when we were doing archery, I'm pretty sure. I still have the certificate that he gave me on my wall, like, as proof that that situation happened. Literally, I have it on my wall. But pretty much, I did good during archery, and I got the bow on the red of the circle. I don't know what it's called. The target, right? And if you got the bow on the red of the target, you got a certificate for that. Me and like 15 other students got a certificate for making it on the red. And that was like right before COVID hit. And so I ended up, since I ended up making it on the bullseye, he was handing out certificates. And I was already uncomfortable with him, so I didn't want to be near him. I didn't want him to give me the certificate. I wanted the other gym teacher to give me the certificate, even though, like, both the gym teachers kind of made me feel weird. Like, the other one didn't do anything. It was just, like, how he dressed. Because he would dress in, like, very short sports clothes. Very short and tight sports clothes. Which definitely made me uncomfortable. And it seems as though, like, every guy that is involved in sports either wears very short and tight clothes, or they want the girls to wear short and tight clothes. So yeah. But back to the certificate. So the old gym teacher, he's like 60s, 70s, right? He came to me while I was talking to my friends, and he started talking to me about how I'm doing such a great job and all that stuff. And not only was he talking to me, he put his hand on my shoulder. And he started talking to me, saying, you're doing such a great job. If you put this much effort into all the other things, then you'd get a good grade and stuff like that. And in his left hand, he was holding the paper, the certificate for me getting a bullseye, or close to a bullseye on the red. And then with his right hand, he was holding my shoulder as he was speaking to me. And he was saying like how I was doing such a great job and how I should put more effort into all the sports so that I could get a good grade, and that if I focused more then I could get a good grade. And he had his hand on my shoulder the whole entire time. He didn't let go of my shoulder. And it wasn't until I snatched the paper from his hand and backed up that he let go of my shoulder. And I definitely know that, and definitely remember that it was before COVID, because I had my Bath and Body Works hand sanitizer in my bag that I squeezed into my hand, rubbed into my hands, and wiped my shoulder off with because of how uncomfortable he made me feel. And in that moment, I kind of turned it into like a little joke between my friends. I was like, yeah, let me get his cooties, his germs off, because that's weird. Like, he didn't need to do that, but I turned it into a joke because I was uncomfortable and I didn't know if any of my friends would have found that weird. So I tried making it into some type of joke because I wanted to see what their reactions would be, and they didn't pay much mind to it. They were just like, not much to say about that. They didn't say anything. They were just like, okay. But then that's when COVID happened. Literally, I think that was like on a Friday possibly, because when we got back to school, it was Zoom. It was no longer in person. That was when everyone thought, oh, 3 days off of school. Oh, now it's 3 weeks off of school. And then a whole year off of school. But then it was like Zoom school, right? So I didn't have to deal with him in person, but then I ended up having to deal with him through Zoom. And one of the times he tried putting me in a private Zoom with just me and him, because I wasn't participating in any of the Zoom activities, because obviously he wanted us, he like, some of the student, like, he was trying to do gym, but like through Zoom. So one of the times, or 2 or 3 of the times, the students were like having to turn on their cameras and do jumping jacks, like physically show him that they're being active. But then once he realized that people weren't really doing that, and like the first like 2 or 3 students that were doing that were just doing that for fun, because it was funny doing jumping jacks or whatever gym stuff on a Zoom call. He was like, okay, I'm just gonna give you guys papers now, or like paperwork, Zoom work, whatever, like that. But yeah, so that was the first time he made me uncomfortable. Well, second, because first was him walking into the locker room. Like, I wasn't in the locker room, but I physically saw him walk into the locker room, open the doors, and tell the girls to get out because he didn't want them in there. To me, that was wrong. He didn't have to do that. And him putting his hand on my shoulder for like a solid 3 minutes while he spoke to me, maybe 5, I don't know. It felt like he had done that for like 30 minutes, but I think it was like 3 or 5 minutes. Well, he over explained me doing a great job at whatever it was, at archery. So I felt like that was wrong, right? Obviously. Why would a teacher need to touch me? Why would a teacher need to put their hands on me? No other teacher had put their hands on me other than the female teachers who I gave hugs to. Because I was going through a rough time in high school. I was already broken. I was so broken, destroyed, lost. I didn't have God in high school. I thought I had God in high school. I was so far away from God. I was so lost. I didn't know who God was really in high school. If I did, things would have been so much different. Things would have been way better. probably would have been way tougher, but it would have been at least less stressful. But so the last year of high school, which is where we get to when I tried telling people and they didn't listen, or they listened but didn't really care. He had chose me, the gym teacher, the 70-year-old gym teacher. It was the last year of high school for me, so 2023, and it's 2025 now. Yes, I know, 2 years later, I'm saying something. I tried saying something back in 2023. No one cared, so I'm sharing this with the world now, and if the world hears it, it's not my fault, it is the algorithm. And I don't think a school can sue me for my personal experiences in the school. Like, those were my personal experiences, and it's not like it's a private school. It's a public school. Well, for the most part, you do have to kind of sign up to be in there, which makes no sense at all. Like, why would I need to sign up to be in a school that claims to be better but is actually worse? Right? But the very last thing he did when I was last year, senior year, that was, he had chosen me to be the test dummy for the sport, right? When the gym teachers choose a student to be an example of how to do the activity, he had chose me as the person to do the activity. He never chooses me. He never does anything like that. But I did not want to get a bad grade. I was already at a C- in gym because I didn't do anything, because I didn't want to be noticed by him. I did not want to be of his attention, of his view in gym. I didn't want him to be near me. I didn't want to be near him. I didn't want anything to do with him, so I'd just sit on the bleachers with some of my friends that also didn't like gym. And once again, it's not that I didn't like gym. I didn't like the teacher, so I didn't want to do any other activities. You can ask my middle school teacher and my elementary school teacher. You can ask them. I did gym activities all the time. Yes, I was terrible at it. Yes, people yelled at me, but I was doing the gym activities because I liked gym. But like I said, he chose me to be the example of how to do the activity. I don't even remember what the activity was. All I know is that I had a ball and I needed to do something. And he told me to stand somewhere. I stood a few inches away from where he told me to stand because he was standing right behind where he told me to stand. So it was like, take it for example, like, I am standing. I get up from my seat, walk like 6 feet onto the gym floor, and then I'm standing on a line. The gym teacher doesn't like the line that I'm standing on, but he is standing on the line behind me. But then he pretty much wants me to back up from the line I'm standing on to the line where he's standing on, but he's directly behind me. So if I was to back up and stand on the line that he wanted me to stand on, I would be inches away from him. I was about maybe 2 feet away from him. He wanted me right in front of him. So he took it upon himself to grab me by both of my shoulders and drag me backwards towards him. My body did not touch his body, but he grabbed me by both my shoulders with both of his hands and dragged me backwards towards him. And then after that, he did step to the side a little bit, like maybe like by half a foot, but he was still behind me. I did the activity he wanted me to be an example for in front of the 30 plus students that were there, which I guess they don't see what he did as wrong because he's an old guy. He always touched all the students, and since I'll get to that in a minute, but he did that. I did the activity. I sat down. Once everyone else started doing the activity, I walked out of that class. They called to me because it was both the old gym teacher and the younger gym teacher who ended up taking over for him towards his retirement, because that old gym teacher also retired, which adds to the story, which adds to my story, my experience, because this happened. So I walked out of that gym class. They yelled for me because they didn't want me to leave, because you're not allowed to leave the gym, because the gym's like at a basement level in a way, and then like to get to like the main school area, you have to walk up the stairs and then go over a bridge that goes over the street, and that is where the gym, that is where the main school is, like the principal's office, counselors, all that. I went directly to the counselor's office and I was crying. I was full on tears, crying. I asked to speak with the vice principal because I thought, since now we have a vice principal and the vice principal is a female, she would be understanding. But that was my mistake, especially due to the fact that she had just gone through losing a family member. I asked to speak with her. Someone called her saying that a student needs to speak with her about a teacher, and she came in just a few minutes, like maybe 20-30 minutes later, and said that she's sorry, she just got back from a funeral. And I was like, oh, that's great, this is gonna make this situation even worse. So I had tried speaking to her about it, and she didn't care. she really didn't care. She really didn't care. So due to what the teacher had done, I decided that I was going to tell her about that, and I was going to tell her about another student that had done stuff to me, about that first student that I told you guys about, right? The other kid who did that thing in the hallway freshman year. So I told her about both the teacher and the student situation. And when I told her about I ended up telling her about the student situation because there was a student, he ended up coming back to the school. Like, it turned out, like, after, it turned out that he was still, he was bothering, like, the younger grades in maybe 11th grade. I don't know for sure, so do not quote me on that. Do not. It is my friend who knows what happened, because those were her friends that were being bothered by him. So all I know for sure was he was bothering younger kids. I don't know when it was or what grades they were in, but he was. And so me and two of my friends were being like, we need to make a petition to get him kicked out of the school, because that's the only way that things are done. People needed to vote, and if there was a majority vote, then things would get done. So our school was pretty much like politics, which is great. But we tried starting that, and since the teacher was since the vice principal had gotten upset about that, she ended up calling us into her office one at a time, and she asked us about it. And I told her what the kid did to me, And she was like, okay, we can get the camera proof, that we can look at the camera footage. And I was like, that happened 3 years ago. And then her response to that was, well, then there's nothing we can do. You should have said something 3 years ago, because now this is all just alleged. Because there is no footage, there is no proof, and you have no witnesses. So there is nothing we can do, and you cannot claim things that cannot be proven. Even though sometimes the memory still pops in my head. My memory isn't enough proof. My memories of what happened in that school aren't enough. They will never be enough for how corrupt this world is. I tell them the truth and they shame me as if I did something wrong. But I tried telling her, and all she said was that there's no proof because that was 3 years ago. There's no camera footage, there's no witnesses. You have nothing to go off of. Just what you say. So it's hearsay. And with the teacher situation, I tried telling her. I sat down, I told her everything, and she asked me, did I tell him not to touch me? She told me that I should have spoken up, that I was supposed to speak up and tell the gym teacher that I did not want him touching me, that I did not want him to put his hands on me. And she even went ahead and asked me if he has touched or moved other students in a similar way. And I said yes. And me saying yes told her that it's just a normal thing that he does. It's nothing to look into. It wasn't anything. And the teacher had worked there for over 30 years. And I guess they've never had a complaint about him. Everyone loved him. He had been there for decades. And it just so happened that the year that he made me uncomfortable, he was retiring. So the vice principal also added to our conversation, telling me, we are not going to ruin someone's career over a misunderstanding. And that was great. That was amazing to hear. That was amazing to hear. So, first off, she told me I should have told him something. I should have spoken up. I should have told him not to touch me. I should have told him I am not comfortable with him touching me. You need to back up. I should have told him that. Okay, cool. Next time I'll do that, because the only way to get someone in trouble is to say no first, right? You gotta say no to confirm with them that they know not to do that. Even though he should have known that touching students is wrong. Like, how is it that every other teacher in the school knows not to touch a student, but then the gym teacher gets a pass because he's old and because that's just normal that he does? Like, literally, the teachers weren't allowed to touch the students to the point when students got into fights. Teachers just had to stand there and watch and like yell at them to stop, because the teachers were not allowed to touch the students. The teachers would have to sit there or stand there and just watch and make sure no one was recording while the students fought, because the teachers couldn't do anything. But like the one security guard guy could, because he could do like a citizen's arrest on the students, right? But like the teachers weren't allowed to touch students, but the gym teacher got a pass. I wonder why. I really do. I really do. Maybe it was the decades that he worked as a gym teacher. Maybe no one would believe that he would do anything to make anyone uncomfortable, and if he did make anyone uncomfortable, then it was just them that had an issue. It was like it's like that saying, like when you think something's wrong and people are like, oh well, that's your issue, that's your problem, that's a you thing, you have to deal with that, right? That's what it felt like. It felt like a slap in the face to hear the vice principal, who was a female who I thought I could trust because the year before a teacher had just gotten arrested for talking to a student. I felt like I could finally speak up about me being uncomfortable with the gym teacher. But since he was retiring, and since he was old, and since he had worked at the school for decades, they said that I needed to tell him no, and that I wasn't going to ruin someone's career over a misunderstanding. I just wanted to feel okay in that school. I didn't want to ruin his career. I didn't want to have to go into that gym class. I didn't want to have to step foot in that gym class and worry that a teacher was going to touch me. I didn't want to be fearful in that school because an adult had made me uncomfortable. And I, a child, felt like I couldn't do anything. How is it that my sister was able to go to her counselor, and her counselor is doing something about it and is thankful and grateful that my sister spoke up about what happened with her teacher, even though the main thing that had happened that made her uncomfortable was in freshman year? What is this complete 180? What is this complete 180? I even ended up calling the school district in 2024. I ended up calling the school district. I ended up emailing my school district, and they ended up calling me to like verbally hear my what I had to say. And I told them everything. I told them every single thing and all the responses of all the teachers, and they told me that they are glad that I spoke up, but that I should have told the gym teacher no, and that I should have said things earlier because there is no footage proof. What is that? Like, like, okay, thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you for hearing me out. But you're saying the exact things that the vice principal told me that made me feel like it was my fault. Like, you're saying that it's not my fault. Like, she was the person who was saying that it wasn't my fault. She was saying that it wasn't my fault, that he shouldn't have been touching students, but that since it was a normal thing for him to be touching students, since he normally touched students to move them in a certain position or certain area in the gym, that was a normal thing for him, so he wouldn't have known to not be touching students. So how long has he gone? Out of all those decades that he worked as a gym teacher, how long has he gone with touching students? Not in any weird way, but like grabbing them by their arms and their shoulders. How long? How long would have that gone on if he didn't retire? How far would have it had gone? How far has it gone, right? Because he had been a gym teacher for decades. You never know. You really never know. And do people actually look at the security cameras? Do they? Because with my situation, they could have looked at the security cameras and seen exactly what he did. Because, yes, he didn't do anything harmful or sexual or whatever like that, but he physically grabbed me by both my shoulders and dragged me backwards towards him. I almost fell. I literally had to stop myself from falling backwards onto him because I was not expecting him to grab me by my shoulders. But yeah, that was my high school experience. That was some of my high school experience, because there's a lot of things that I did wrong in high school, and there's a lot of things that happened to me that were wrong in high school, but not all of them are worthy of a story time. I know I did my wrong, and I apologize to those who hurt me. I didn't know I still am learning how to care for people, because in high school I couldn't care about you guys as much as I wish. I couldn't genuinely care about you guys because I didn't even care about myself. I did not think I had any self-worth in high school. I barely even wanted to be alive during high school. Like, I didn't do anything. But from like 6th grade, to high school, I didn't want to be alive. I really didn't. I didn't want to deal with daily life. I didn't want to deal with any of this. I didn't have God like I do now. And I am so sorry for those that I have hurt. I'm so sorry for those that I have done wrong. I really do hope and pray that you guys forgive me, because I hurt way too many of you. And sometimes I feel like sometimes I feel like I deserved what I've gone through because of how badly I've hurt others. This world is a dark and evil place, and there's just so much that goes wrong. I'm sorry that I allowed the world to corrupt my mind. I would have never treated some of you the way that I did. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to have friends. But it got to the point where I didn't want to be friends with anyone. I couldn't handle my own life. I didn't want to have to deal with other people's lives, because all of my friends dealt with so much. All of them dealt with so much, and I had so little faith and hope in my own life that I couldn't handle the daily struggles of being friends with some of the people that I was friends with in high school. Being friends with those people just hurt me more. And I'm sorry that I ended up hurting you guys because of how much I was hurting. I know better now. Thanks to God. Thanks to Jesus. I know better now. And I have Jesus in my life. I accept Jesus in my life. I have accepted Jesus in my life, and I truly apologize for anyone that I have hurt. And if you're a person who went to my high school, you probably know who I am by my voice. I would hope that anyone will come alongside me with sharing any experiences that they had gone through that school, because I know I'm not the only one. And I know know it could be like it could be nerve-wracking or scary or whatever like that, to share the experiences, the harmful, hurtful experiences that you went through in high school. And I know a lot of you say the past is the past and that you just have to get over it, but that hurt me, and that is part of my testimony, and I'm still healing from it. So I just wanted to let all of you know who might watch story times or might know about the high school, and this is showing up because you search up the high school on YouTube. But yeah, this is my truth. This is my story. You cannot take it down, because I am not talking badly about the school. I'm speaking on my own experiences. This video is not harmful to anyone. It is me expressing a moment in my life that I had to deal with, that I went through, that I'm still healing from. And I thank you for your time. And I hope that you guys are doing okay. I hope that everything is going great for you guys, especially for those of you who have graduated from the high school. Thank you, God, that I survived that high school. Thank you, Lord. I will see you guys later. So, goodbye. God bless you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.